This is House Corrections and Institutions. It is Thursday, January 16th, and we're continuing our conversation and testimony with BGS. And we have Joe Asia with us to go over some of our current projects that are in the capital bill. So I would recommend for the committee to pull out your spreadsheet and possibly some papers or however you want to take some notes with this. But we can get an update on the current projects that are on the spreadsheet for FY 24 and 25. We cannot get any information at this point on what's going to be proposed for 26 and 27. Okay, because some of these projects will be ongoing. That will be in the upcoming governor's budget. But we don't have access to that. And the departments and agencies are not at liberty to share that until the governor presents his budget. So this is just sort of helping us orient ourselves to the projects that have already been approved, and give us an update on where they are in the process that will then help us when we do get the governor's. So Joe, welcome, and you do have some documents with us too.
Yes, I do. Let me share my screen.
And the packets that were handed out to the members that want paper, this is included in that whole packet.
So make sure you have your spreadsheet in front of you, because this will really help you orient to what the process will be like. Let's get the this.
And Madam Chair, just for the record, Joe is presenting the status of the projects. We're not getting into some of the policy, some of the, I always look at the back of the bill where policy and land.
Yeah.
And those, that's not part of this presentation. So that, I mean, it's really.
It's what's on our spreadsheet.
That's correct.
Oh, yours, Joe.
Word again, for the record, Joe Agia, Director for Design and Constructions with Buildings and General Services. The slide deck is laid out exactly with the spreadsheet for section 2. And we get to it, section 18 in the cash.
If we get to it, we don't, we'll get to you.
I'm sure you'll have me back. So
Yes, okay.
Up first is major maintenance. And major maintenance is a line item in the capital bill, but it is comprised of a lot of smaller projects. Typically what we're looking at no more than $750,000 because of the limit of the line item. But it is to do these smaller projects that the numerous projects that we have from mentioned earlier, you know, we're doing sidewalks, we're doing roofs. But you'll see in here, I think it's in this capital bill of doing roofs, you know, some roofs now are coming in at $1 million. So that's a line item. Not everything is under major maintenance to skirt that issue that, you know, they do still come before you as a line item. And so I've come here before for, you know, a $400,000 line item for parking lot and the likes of that. So really what major maintenance is about, you can only deferred. So it's been sitting on a list. Our lists are coming from mainly our work orders now with our work order system. But it's life safety, things that have failed, an emergency, so all those things come into play. So if there's a roof leak, it could be $10,000 to repair that or more. That's an emergency fix that comes out of major maintenance. Things like that.
So to orient the committee, we're on line 1, which is major maintenance.
And so the FY24 balance of 236,000, may that be utilized by,
Where are you?
oh,
It's on slide 2.
I'm sorry. I'll stop talking. I can go to that minute.
No, I'm just orienting folks
You know what?
on the
I
spreadsheet.
apologize.
And the spreadsheet, what we've put in for FY 24 was $8 million for major maintenance and 8.5 million plus for major maintenance in FY 25. So for the the two fiscal years, for our 2-year capital bill, BGS has 16.5 million for their major maintenance projects. So what Joe is starting to go through is what some of those projects and major maintenance, what it entails. And also on the next slide, how much has also been used, how much is encumbered, how much has been used. So work with your spreadsheet and just follow through. And we're on line 1, major maintenance.
So as you can see on this slide here, and this is the time from everything that's in this slide deck, this basically was put together this month dollar-wise, so you know that. Here for 2024, we had roughly 198 work orders that have come in that we are addressed, and we prioritize those. We prioritize that work with our district facility managers. John Hebert, you heard about the director for operations and maintenance. His supervisor out there for each of the 6 districts. We work with them to say, which one that you're putting on the listed work order is a higher priority than the other. And then we go through. So we have a lot of work orders, more work orders typically than we have dollars for, because we also have stuff that's still in the works from the previous year, previous biennium that are on the list and maybe going through design and likes of that. So with that said, we're having out of FY24, we have a balance of $236,031. Now, what happens is I go out to bid, and it's typically with a designer, architect, engineer, and a clerk of the works that we do a contract with them for a dollar amount. But things may ebb and flow that we don't actually use all that money. Then that money comes back at the end of the contract. Sometimes with a construction contract, we also have alternates that we may have taken. That then would also be coming back in. So the balance, if I pulled up that balance today, it actually may be less. It could be down to 0. It could be up to 600,000. But as that balance comes in and it's there, my program chief, Lauren Washburn, who is in charge of our major maintenance program, she will use that money just as it comes up when another work order comes up. So that we're trying to use our oldest money first.
So, Madam Chair, I think for the new members of the committee, there is statutory authority that allows the commissioner of BGS. I think this is almost fungible dollars, that because major maintenance is so critical that we're allowed to, as Joe was just describing, to reassign it or to move it. So the balance is, that could be 286 today. But we paid off something, a project came in under, it goes there. But what's most important that I want the committee to understand is this is your dedicated stream of dollars that goes to that 3 million square feet of space that we talked about yesterday. And this is how we keep all of our, general services is there to support agencies and departments in completing their mission and to maintain the health and care of buildings. So this is what that bucket of money does. And so it's really critical for the operations of buildings and general services statewide. And so I get a little passionate about this. And for some members, we were at one time at about 13 million a year for major maintenance, and your debt affordability has dropped. So looking at 8 million for me coming back is what we were probably at in 1999, 2000. So you've actually had to fund less of this. But the team is doing a really good job on spending. And I know that was part of the concern. There's a clear process. Joe has this wonderful team together, and we move things through major maintenance. So that's huge. It's not stagnant money. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is. That's correct.
So also there was a question that Connor Casey asked yesterday, put on the table. He'd like more information about the physical conditions of our correctional facilities. And I think you folks probably have a list of deferred maintenance.
Yes, where we.
Each of the facilities.
Okay, well,
And that might be helpful to bring that in at some point.
okay, we're making note, and we'll work together as a team on what that should look, the presentation should look like.
Yeah, the question is, if we really look at our correctional system and long-term, we need to know where our facilities are in terms of their maintenance and upkeep, and not just in their limitation, what they can provide for DOC to provide programming in there, but the building itself.
Yes, and Madam Chair, I think this goes to the earlier discussion, and we can make it a part of this presentation. So, you know, Joe may have on his list door replacements. I'm just going to use that as an example without getting into the weeds. And we may not be able to get someone to come in and do those door replacements. So while we have the list, then we have to look at the whole flow of everything. How do we, you know, it's on the list, it needs to be repaired. Where are we in that status? And do we have anyone available that meets the expectations in doing that? Is that fair,
Correct.
Joe?
And we might have a larger project coming up also that we would then incorporate.
Right. So, yeah, we'll chat about that and happy to come back, but not tomorrow.
No, not, no, over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
This is something to consider. Joe?
Is there any sort of depreciation accrual that BGS has? Because I suspect that the amount you're working with is what you're working with, but it's probably not enough to maintain 3 million square feet.
So we've always aligned with the debt affordability and in the budget. So when we were at 180 million, we were probably getting about 13-14 million a year. So, you know, I think our demand is higher. And when we present the budget, Joe, I believe, has this wonderful diagram that shows that, and you will see that. You know, we had about 50% spend right now, which we're about halfway through the fiscal year. So that's pretty good, Joe, right?
Yes, we are catching up. We did take a hit
Yeah.
with Irene. 4 project managers went to shore up and rebuild Waterbury. And then that's where we did lose out in getting the money we did in major
Yeah.
maintenance because they were just built up, didn't have the staff to get the work out. Now we've caught up to that, so sort of with major maintenance, as you can see, we're at the edge of planning what we have for the end of the fiscal year.
So we don't do depreciation as part of the calculation, really, to answer your question, but, you know, I think there are many other things that go into it. We'll share that. You know, but I think most importantly, getting back on track and spending it has been the priority, and Joe and his team have done a good job in accomplishing that.
And that will be what's before us when we do markup. We may feel, wow, major maintenance needs $2 million more. But where are we gonna find it? But you can't increase the bonding level. So you're within a certain budget and you have to work within that budget to meet the needs. So you gotta weigh all of that.
So of interest to note on this one slide, though, we have the 2 top photos. It's roughly the same exact spot inside of a ductwork in a correctional facility. The left-hand photo, the little yellowish one, is the amount of dust, dirt, and whatnot in the ductwork itself. Then we come through and do a duct cleaning. In a correctional facility, we're doing duct cleaning cycled of every 5 years. For office space, it's 10 or more years because of the limited use of this building here. They're going to go 20 years without having to be duct cleaning. Part of the other issue there is the blankets that they have give off a lot of dust, so that's what that buildup is. So it doesn't take long to get built up, and then they go in and do stuff. So anything else at major maintenance?
So ductwork get clogged up with other things besides dust.
Think it's,
It
what's that machine
is,
called?
Huh?
What's the machine
The
called?
muffin
There
eater.
it is.
oh, the muffin monster? That's sewer, not ductwork. But similar. It'd be nice to have it. If you look at this photo here, on the left-hand side, that little yellow thing like that, yes, that's a little added something to the ductwork. Even though we do cleaning, ductwork, we had an issue, I forget when, we actually found a hat in the ductwork. It's duct cleaning. It's like, well, if you stuck your head in the ductwork with your hat on, you came out without it, you would think you'd go in and get it, but no. There's papers, there's stickers, there's a whole bunch of things that end up in ductwork. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, particularly in a correctional facility.
Yes. More so
As long as you don't find knives,
this.
drivers.
Next up, in the line item is statewide physical security enhancements. And this is with our division of security. And this is around the deployment and use of our card access system, panic systems, video systems, the lockdown budget over the panic systems, and the likes of that, and it's a replacement. So back after 9/11, we started putting in these systems and handing out keys. It was easier for card access. And we have built that out substantially through all our buildings, and even today are adding more and more. So if something happens with a need, change of even use where you divide a floor in half between two different departments, another card reader may be installed. A lot more cameras are going up for security reasons. More of really what has happened after the fact than what's happening ongoing right now, because there's nobody sitting there like they do in Atlantic City and Vegas and sitting watching the monitors. But you can see what's going on here and there.
And I just would like to add, you all met Bill, but this is almost like the major maintenance of the security world.
It is.
As you look at it. So if judiciary has an issue and they call Bill and we need to do something, that's what Joe is referring to. And, so it's used for multiple things. The money does move. It's just, it doesn't necessarily have a planned list like Joe's presenting and when we talk about major maintenance. But it is the source of funds that instead of taking out of major maintenance, we use to address those statewide security enhancements. And we also manage the state of Vermont, the SOV notification system. And so if any of you ever want to go in and sign up for that, it's in addition to 911, but it's state of Vermont notification, like the state building is closed, or if there's an issue going on. It's a great, so I'm sort of selling my security, signing up on your phones for those notifications, because you'll get road conditions, you'll get, all of those pieces, and we can send the connection to Bill.
That's on top of the BT alert thing.
Yes,
The capital
yes.
police.
Yeah.
Correct.
So if we have an issue with a state building, and we got to close, or if there's something going on, we use SOV for people to be notified that are associated with the state.
We should have that.
Yeah, we'll get
Because
to Phil, and you can choose to add it to your phone or.
never know what happens off session.
Mhm.
And you'll get a call from the press and say, hadn't heard. Troy?
Do you have plans for that 100K from FY24?
Yes.
I'm just asking because
Are you in the Republic of
Reading
India?
my mind.
No,
It's
and-
very curly in mouth.
Oh, wonderful.
Troy opened that up.
Yeah.
Right, because for the committee, this is really important to read this FY24 appropriation. We put in the capital bill, 250,000. They have expended of that almost 150. And there's a remaining 100,000 that is not encumbered. Okay, so going into FY25, they got another 250,000. And they have expended more of the 25 than the $24. And they only have a little left encumbered. So when you come to with a new budget, and they're gonna ask for whatever, it could be 200,000 each year, 250,000 each year, the question we need to ask, because now you got the documents, is exactly what Troy asked. You got 100,000 that's not encumbered. When is that anticipated to be used? Because if they're not anticipating it, I'm only putting this as a hypothetical. If it's not encumbered, they don't have any plans for it yet, we might think, maybe you don't need the 250,000 for FY26. Maybe all you need is 150,000, because you still got 100,000 in the bank. So that's what the committee needs to focus on. So the document you're getting today is really important because it will lay out at this point in time how much of FY '24 and how much of FY '25 dollars have gone out the door. And I'd also like, when I saw the term encumbered, I think it would be good for the committee to have joint fiscal office come in, probably Scott or maybe Catherine Benham or someone, to talk about the terms of what allocation, appropriation, encumbered, what all that means. So that we can really understand in the money world how our capital bill fits in. And when we do markup, we'll be using some of those terms. Joe?
For my understanding, why would, like in this example of security enhancements, the FY '25 appropriation be to have zero balance and the 24 appropriation still has a.
Sure.
So I'd like to address this just back to Joe's point. Joe told you in major maintenance, this is a fiscal shot at a point in time, so you put the PowerPoint together. So that FY '24 could have been encumbered and maybe a project got delayed or something happened. So in January, it's no longer encumbered. So we could have originally had the '24 money all encumbered and identified to a project. Something happened, so we immediately moved to spend in the '25. Joe went in and Joe, I believe you looked, was it December or January for your data?
It was in January, 1st of January.
So 1st of January, this is where these accounts stand. Today, if we run a financial, it might look a little bit different. So, because, and that's, so it's not that we just jumped to 25 and ignored 24. It was probably obligated. And to the chair's point, it may be obligated today since January 1. And when we come in and present the budget, we will have new updates. And that's really important.
So hypothetically, we're $100,252 encumbered for physical security enhancements later today. Would that then show still $100,000 balance in '24 and $100,000 deficiency in '25, or how would that be reflected?
It is, we track by year and code. So as of January 1, we had no contracts in FY '24 assigned to the 100,000. We had no work plan. In FY '25, because this is the chair's point about encumbrance, we have $2,742 encumbered, which is a contract. It's a commitment. The encumbrance is an obligation that
You have a signed
that we
contract.
have. And so as of January 1, we have $100,000 available to invest in any statewide security request until July 1. That's what we have available.
You got left
That's what we have left right now.
100,000 left
It's
to get you through
100,000.
this remaining fiscal year.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And FY, just for context, as we're starting to look, the repro group is starting to look at what money is unspent. FY '24 is really recent, like that's not gonna flag attention. There's money back to 2019?
19, and we,
Yeah.
I think last year we had one even further.
Yeah, yeah. I think anyway, I was just being
It's in the weeds.
In December, we had money from 13, a whole 2 cents.
I remember some of those.
Yeah.
Joe's
There you
back.
go. We
We want
went
it.
out and had a great time. 2 cents.
We want those 2 cents.
This
Yes.
Committee is,
Joe, did you encumber that too?
Yes.
committee's pretty stingy. I mean.
Those gumball machines.
Those were the ones that-
One of yours.
We scraped the barrel to find money.
But yes, this one and a few others are like major maintenance, as I said, it ebbs and flows because we may have a contract or something and they don't do a camera or something like that, it's not needed. And then money goes back in, and we get reallocated later on and obligated and used.
But with
And,
6 months left, 100,000 probably is not a whole lot.
and so what I'm looking at these slides, regardless of which fiscal year it is, it can be thought of as whatever the balance is. That balance may be utilized by VGS up until July 1st, the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
Because that's FY 24 expired June 30th,
Last year.
24. So FY 25 started July 1st, it will expire this year, June 30th.
And to Mary and other folks' points, when the recapture team, that's not the right word.
Repro.
Repro.
Repo.
The unexpended funds, hooky team, goes and looks at the money, you're looking for money from several years ago,
Yes, more than 2 years ago.
98 times.
You'll get in the flow. You'll get it.
Sorry.
Kevin?
Dumb
No?
question. It seems like that would be. Sounds like that would be a computer system question. How much money is still in the balance for fiscal years 19 through 23? Why do we have people looking for that money?
Because some people
Now
are
you'll see.
asking,
Yes.
and if we don't do a deeper dive, and those departments have to come back to Mary and Troy and Brian and make their case why these dollars haven't gone out the door.
It's not that nobody knows, it's not like invisible money that got lost somewhere.
Right.
The administration, they know where the money is. These guys go out and talk to them to say, what do you have left?
Why do you-
Basically, general.
Why is this money not going out the door and it keeps showing up?
They have the spreadsheet, we don't.
And so, Madam Chair, I think for the new members, part of building the capital bill, the Secretary of Administration looks at remaining cash. So you may get a bill that's introduced to you next week that shows reallocation of funds.
And that comes from a computer spreadsheet, basically.
Well, it's the.
Finance and
it's the-
management.
The finance and management basically has a committee like yours, right, that is looking at that, and that's what's presented, and then you may even, so some projects come in under budget or they don't move forward. So the administration will propose to you a reallocation. You support that or not, or you may reallocate it to another project. So it's a very fluid budget process, and you're sort of getting a snapshot of a status of things that you've approved, but because you haven't seen the budget yet.
It's Department of Finance and Management that handles all of this.
Correct.
And then when the governor's budget is presented, we have a section that is, I'm gonna put on my glasses here, section 16, reallocations and transfers, and it lists all those projects,
What did you say? Section what?
16. And it lists all those projects. Now, the bulk of those projects came from the administration, Department of Finance and Management, it was the governor's recommend. So then what we also do is we have our repo committee to do a little deeper dive. See if we can find some more money. Because this is again a point in time when the governor put the budget together. In 3 weeks, it could be different. And with the continuity of the same people as much as possible in this little group, they got the history that, hey, this showed up, it was 5-year-old money. You made your case last year why you still needed it. So the three of them agreed with that and gave their recommendation to us as a full committee. If they go back this year and see that same amount of money with that same entity, it's like, well, you told us you were gonna get that out the door and you didn't. We're gonna grab it back.
To be honest, Troy, wrong.
So that's where, we're very careful with state dollars. Much as some people think the legislature or this committee or any committee isn't, this committee is very, very stingy when it comes to our state dollars. We want them to go out the door for our projects. We don't want it sitting in someone's account, just sitting there. And if you have bonded money that sits for too long, and the treasurer will get into this, you've got some arbitrage issues where you're in violation of some of the requirements of bonded dollars. You can't just let it sit out there and possibly earn interest. So you gotta be careful of that.
Speaking of unspent funds.
Still on about 100?
No. Next slide.
Next slide.
On a slide.
Our,
Easy as a head,
our
yes.
battle might and don't you touch her, no, I'm kidding. So with that, let's go to the next
Next
slide.
one. That's one where you were jumping ahead. Planning, reuse.
No, I saw that
contingency.
too.
Yeah.
I was like, something to.
On this one here, we started the other slideshow on was about programming and planning and whatnot. That's a lot what this goes to. And what we have here, so there's somebody who may, not a line item in the capital bill, but it's like they may have gotten more staff over the time and or new process and need more space. And we use the planning funds to go look at that. 120 State Street was one of those we used planning funds to do the thing for that a little bit so that we could get out there and get a better handle on what we were looking at. We also use it for reuse. Reuse is when mainly BGS needs space for one reason or another. We have to displace people and we have to relocate them to a different area or redo a space to put additional staff into for one agency or department. And then contingency is now up to $100,000 for any project in the capital bill. So if we have a project line item that does go over to $100,000 can be used for the contingency fund on that project.
And I just want to, when we get into the proposal, we may want to talk about a little flexibility for a few years with contingency because of how we're seeing the market and everything coming in. I'm not asking for an increase in it, but just maybe a little bit more flexibility for the commissioner. Yeah, because if I need 120 and it's in the contingency fund, to use that example, I'd like the ability to do it. This is where the partnership of advancing some of these projects, because I haven't been around long enough, but I do know that funding also can delay a project. Is that a fair
Yes.
statement, Joe? And that's one of the things Joe is, sharing with me.
So you have one part of the spreadsheet that shows the FY 24 and FY 25 appropriations. These are bonded dollars. 425 in FY 24, 455 in FY 25. For the committee, if you go to line 184, you will see planning reuse contingency. They have additional cash. They had 400,000 additional in cash to the 425 in FY 24, and they had 220,000 in FY 25. So you also have cash that's come into this line item. So there's an additional 620,000 on top of the 425 and 455. That's what we have to track. So is any of that cash been encumbered?
It has not.
So we'll see what's in the governor's recommend. This is a good example. We'll see what's in the governor's recommend. And if the governor recommends another 400,000 for the next 2 fiscal years, and then we see this pot of money that hasn't been hasn't been going out the door, then we start asking some real serious questions. Why hasn't it gone out the door? What are you anticipating? You need all this other 800,000 when you already got more than $1 million in hand.
I was gonna say, so basically it's $1.5 million just to. Right.
So that's the other layer. It's not just bonded dollars that we're going to be looking at for some of these projects. There's also some cash that may go into some of these projects. So section 18 is really important to us to look at when we're going through our regular projects in front of the spreadsheet. Joe?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, So this, it's a point of strategy then, so it's, preferable to commit your bonded dollars before you commit your cash, because the cash is more flexible. So the bonded dollars need to go out the door, or it makes,
Maybe your cash is more available. Because the treasurer hasn't gone out with a bond sale yet.
but okay, but in a scenario whereby there's both, is there a, is there any preference, or we just spend whatever we,
I don't know.
I don't need an
I
answer.
don't think it would depend on the project, wouldn't it? I mean,
It was, I think, just another method of funding, the cash fund, that they can then give to, so it's an addition to bonded money in some instances. Some of them were just out of the cash fund. This is the only one now, if you go back and you look at your table, where we did have cash for other projects. Then last year, some of those really got all rolled up into bonded heat. I think it was a heat plant for Northern State Correctional Facility. That had cash fund and bonded, and it all went to bond funds the last year. So it would be spent
regardless.
the same way, budgeted.
Well, I think, isn't it so if there's a bond for a project, that money has to be used for that project. So if in your cash, and that, you don't need the cash, we can use that somewhere else in the budget. You
Not
can't-
unless you're given the authority to do that. You cannot move money between projects unless you're given the authority to do
Right.
that.
But you definitely can't bond, right, for,
What we do is we have, it's in the capital bill.
Mhm.
You can move money within the BGS section between projects. You can also move money in other parts of the capital between each other, but you need authority from the Secretary of the Administration and possibly the E-Board if it goes over a certain level. They're not free to move
Okay, so
money
it's not-
around.
So it's
We
not
have
really that
some
flexible.
flexibility.
There's some, but the legislature is very clear
Okay.
that the administration cannot go out there and move all these dollars around.
Well, I mean,
But that is one of the things I just like to say, I'm in agreement with you, Madam Chair. The reuse and the contingency, so that spend happens when projects are really being advanced. So right now, if we don't have any planning, because we've already done it for the projects in the capital bill, and we haven't gone out to bid, we haven't assigned contingency. And it's always been a group of money that you've appropriated to BGS. So especially when you're not in session, we can continue moving those projects forward. And I think in seeing the capital bill, is it next week? I'm so.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
28, not next week. following week.
If there's new initiatives or revisions in there, that's where this money really comes forward. And the other thing that I learned is you created this cash fund. Instead, that was a big change, and that's a part of this discussion too.
It's another layer that gets really complicated.
It was when Joe was, I understand, because we used to just reassign it. Now you actually have a cash fund designated.
And it's all dependent as appropriations committee works up on the general fund state budget. If they're really, really tight on their state budget, they can go to the cash fund and pull money out of it.
well, that's what I was asking. That's what I meant by, but they can't take bonded money out. They can only take cash.
Would be an argument to spend the cash. Which would be an argument to spend the cash first. So it doesn't.
No,
No,
not
'cause then
when
you
you're
can't help.
setting your budget going forward. Where the appropriations committee is setting the state budget for FY 26.
Yes.
And we are setting the capital budget for FY 26 and 27. We may be building our budget based on $40 million worth of cash. Appropriations committee may find they're in the hole 20 million. They could pull 20 million from that cash fund for FY 26, which means we'd be 20 million short when we're putting together our capital budget for FY 26 and 27.
And
It's
so,
cash.
and the idea of protectionism, like you're right, we would spend the money and be like, oh, we don't have any, but
We
that's
don't
not,
have
but that's not here. That's teamwork of saying, we gotta cover this hole, here's, you know, we'll cut back here, we'll use the cash over there to protect the overall budget, which is a bigger priority.
And then we're short 20 mil. But we'd have to figure out, what do we do? What do we do?
Fortunately, today's exercise is a scenario of hypotheticals. So
No,
So are we going to have a session where we define what cash is versus the credit card? Or have I missed that?
it will be broken down in the governor's budget and broken down in the spreadsheet, because you can see section
Well,
18
you know, I see that,
is all cash.
but the definition of cash.
We're-
The layman would say the bond, we're paying interest on it. Cash, are we paying interest on that money?
It's general fund.
to 4:30 on Tuesday, next Tuesday, there'll be someone comes in.
I'll get up and listen.
Cash fund is just another layer to the capital budget that can add a layer of confusion. And we're not in control of the amount of dollars that will be in the cash fund at the end. We are not in control of that. It is the appropriation committees that are in control of that, not us. We control more of the bonding. They control the cash.
Okay.
But we work with them. We work with them. Anything else on planning, reuse, and contingency here?
If
I'm
anything,
on to our
that'll monument.
beautiful Bennington.
Poor monument.
I think that's, the deck's kind of stacked here for the Bennington Town on
I think it's. Need more money for Chester Arthur?
No way, Jose.
No, Chester Arthur.
So for the Bennington Battle Monument, there is a lot of programming going in place because over the years, although it looks fine from the outside, if you look quickly, it's not holding up so well. There are pieces of the monument, the stone, that is breaking off and falling off. In the summertime, we have a moisture problem, and the moisture's not getting out of the stone. That's a whole different section to talk about the monument itself. This here was to put a fence around the monument and it would be keeping people at bay. And so there's, I forget the distance around the monument, but it's enough that it's a fall zone of some of the stone that have fallen off. Some of them are little pieces, some are a little bit bigger chunks. During the programming, I'll step on that a little bit. The monument itself won't fall over. It has a long ways to go, even if there's an earthquake and the likes of that, for that to actually fall down, but 310 feet up in the air, something like that. You're gonna hurt if you're near the base of the monument. So that's what this money was for. So the fence was put up and completed in May surrounding it. It also has, because the monument is still open, there's a protection zone over your head that you, like, kind of let you walk through to get into the door. And some of that does, some of this cost will be going to that maintenance of that also over the years. So there's going to be a bigger ask to make repairs to the monument over time.
Are we still around the $14 million price tag?
It was a 40 number.
40?
Yes.
I missed that one.
Yes.
40 million?
Yes.
Joe and I could
Okay, Alice, start coughing that up. Get ready.
You gotta rebuild the whole thing.
Urban field trip.
It's a different section. It's a different section.
So roll out.
Historic preservation's got to roll in for this.
Yeah, I know,
was
but
just
I'll
going to say, yes, the historic preservation takes it to a new height.
And I was gonna say, Joe, I walked through the fence the other day. And so I didn't realize that stones could fall. Is that the tunnel we're talking about? No, it's,
Yes.
it's kind of like just an
Yes.
overhead.
It's like staging and you walk
Yeah.
through it. Yes.
If the stone were to fall from the tippy top, it wouldn't,
Come
crash.
through. No, it was actually designed. We had a structural engineer design that. So, roughly a sizable stone to come down to protect anybody going in.
And a lovely fence it is, Joe.
It was not a typical snow fence that went out.
I know too. Well, I said to him, but they had to put something nice because when the 250th comes up,
Oh, yeah.
there'll be tons of folks with all the events and we will plan to do something very beautiful around that fence.
But it has to be safe.
Will it be
Just
beautiful
safety.
enough to raise 40 million to pay for your?
Visitors.
Don't.
We are like the first or second most visited,
Yeah.
historic site in the state.
Winchester, I think.
So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's Bennington and Calvin Coolidge.
absolutely.
In the State House.
Question, the question is, are you gonna
So
charge?
So am I going to have to arm wrestle you?
I,
Am I
I'm
kidding?
only inking your chain. It's just,
40 million, that is,
that's a lot.
That's a
That's
lot
like
more than we
re-
projected.
that's,
I believe that's what it is in there. I mean, they're talking to how to dry it out first, replacement of the elevator, the stairs that are in there all the way. So the moisture that's wicking in is not leaving. So it doesn't have that opportunity to dry out. I don't know the time frame. Laura Trishman may be able to tell you, but it used to have steam heat in there.
Yes.
You've seen heat in there years ago
worst.
to keep, yeah. So
So just-
it is interesting to see. The better part, I think, is from the picture on the left side where you're above the elevator and can go to the top and change the light bulb.
It's wonderful to see when they had to climb the outside of the building.
Yes.
and come back.
So when that comes up, they can have that discussion. And it was very interesting. Lot of engineering that went into that and dry stuff to be reading, but it is interesting on how we even calculated, worst case scenario, could this thing just snap midway? And, they have that. It's pretty interesting. It's safer than pieces falling off. So that's what the fence is for.
Simple man on the mountain. They went.
You disappear.
Yes.
He disappeared, yeah.
So next up is the Brattleboro Courthouse roof replacement. This here's the original roof, everything that's going on in this was back done in it's 2000, no, 80, I forget the year that it was actually constructed. It was constructed before the White River Courthouse, which is
Around
when,
the 80s?
it was in the 80s. I can't remember if it was a 86,
80.
89, something in that ballpark. What's going on. This one does not need a massive overhaul like we were doing at the White River Courthouse that is underway. This here is the roof. We're also doing some window work now to replace the windows that have basically the airlock in the windows has failed. Replacing those, a fire alarm upgrade. So this is a situation where we've taken several work order items that this building has and bundling them together to make one larger project to again entice contractors to bid our work. And it's underway right now. We're looking to be completed in the spring of this year. And we have a balance of $120,400.
It's a nitpick, but the funds expended has an extra one in there, right, after the dollar sign?
Sorry, my typo.
I think that's just the only way the math works.
There's a column.
Yeah.
No, I don't think the one should be there at all.
1 and 8.
Oh, I didn't
One
do
should be out,
math.
should be-
My typing and my math, sorry.
120 is right.
So
Yeah,
120 is-
exactly, yeah. Yeah, Troy's eyes on the ball. Yeah,
What's left?
what's left? What's my slate?
anything else? Next up, we come to Middlesex, the
Yeah.
master plan design and decommissioning of what was the Middlesex Therapeutic Community residence, which is now basically in Essex, if you will. However, this project here, we had to create a temporary juvenile facility, the crisis stabilization facility for the juveniles, and we modified that temporary structure to house them. But we had done some work to look at what we, maximize the site for items. So we have that, but that's basically when it stopped because we were juveniles.
So where did you get the money to do the renovations inside those trailers? Because you didn't take it out of this because it was.
It is not out of there. I have a slide. I think there's some cash and mainly AHS.
Mainly AHS within DMH.
I see there roughly maybe 100,000 of a line item we have in here for the care facility. And then the rest was AHS modifying that.
So these are they're trailers.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say trailers. They were put up in Middlesex, right next to the exit. Right in there. It's where the archives are, and there was a state police barracks there. It's where. It's
No, liquor's not.
That's not,
BGS's print.
Liquor's down the road here on 13 Green Mountain Drive.
what else is there that we're?
It used to be a public safety facility. We got the print shop, state archives.
Sorry, tangents.
So these trailers, there were two of them that were put there after we lost the state hospital in Irene. And they had up to about 8 beds for secure residential. It's really a step down from the state hospital. They were there for temporary until we built a new secure residential facility. Temporary ended up being probably over 10 years, about 10 years. And we did build a secure residential for mental health patients for a step down, and that was built at the old Woodside site in Essex, and that opened up a couple years ago. And that was a 16-bed facility that we built. We had originally thought it would be $16 million a bed to build. And then COVID hit while we were constructing it, and the price went up about $3 million. So it was 19 million. And it was on property that we already owned, but we had to demolish part of the Woodside building for that. So now we're trying to find a spot and how we build a new juvenile center for justice involved juveniles. Woodside's been closed since 2020. Sean?
So is that what this is, you're hoping this is gonna turn into?
No,
it's a
this
temporary
is,
spot.
this is a temporary, so those trailers were due to come down.
The trailers are on the very bottom right side.
Let me rephrase that. So it says up there is develop a master
Right,
plan.
I'm
for the
getting
city.
there.
Oh, okay,
Getting
got
there.
it.
And
2 years ago, those trailers were gonna probably go away because they had gone past their useful life.
yes,
And we put money in for a master plan to really figure out what to do with this site, because we also had the state police barracks there that has now moved to a building in Berlin. So we also have an empty state police barracks. So we wanted to figure out, what are we gonna do with this whole site? Because it's right near the exit there in Middlesex. In the intervening year, Department of Children and Family Services, we need some beds to house some of these juveniles who are going through the justice system. So the great minds that be got together and said, can't we use those 2 trailers in the interim before we get the full juvenile center up and running, the permanent? So we converted those 2 trailers to about 4 beds.
Yep.
For juveniles who are going through the justice system. They're secure beds, but there had to be renovations in those trailers to make them secure for that population.
Yeah.
So the money that we put in for the master plan got pulled back. If you look on the spreadsheet, on line 6, in Act 69, we put in 350,000 in 24, and we projected 400,000 in 25 to go towards the master plan for that whole area and the design and the decommissioning of those trailers. In the interim, between 24 and when we came back last year in January, it had changed that Department of Mental Health, DCF, was going to use those trailers for the juveniles as a temporary placement until we get the permanent replacement built. That's why it went down to 50,000, because we wanted to allow BGS to at least have some money in case something changed, right?
correct.
That's a long,
Move the juveniles in and exchanged.
yeah,
Yeah.
and at the rate we're going, they'll be there for 10 years.
I'm wondering
And
how.
then Dragon Smile laughed when Irene occurred. We brought in these temporary units from a business, I think in the St. Johnsbury area.
So, yeah,
And they were medical, prefab setup, bring them in and house. And we did that, and we had an agreement that when we completed the Vermont State, the facility in Berlin, that this contractor had to take them back for $1. And I'm just smiling, listening to what has happened since then, because Joe, I think I counted 3 times you've renovated
At least.
these units that we were giving back for $1 on our property.
Yes.
And I think that just shows you how you can change so quickly in this committee from one year to the next year. Because, and they're pretty, they started out as medical units, but,
And they weren't secure enough.
and they weren't secure enough.
So we had to rebuild them.
But Joe, you've probably really hardened these walls, and we've pretty much rebuilt from the inside out.
I hope you harden the floors, because I remember when we
There were
did a site
issues.
visit, we almost went through the
Well,
floor.
and that's the key, right? They're just on jacks. Like we went there when I was upstairs. It's just buildings on jacks, and the one that's facing diagonally down you can't see wasn't even in use. It's like part of, like there's a little alleyway. And after that is like a kitchen or something, but other than that, the rest of the building wasn't being used. And so they did a lot of work. You guys did a lot of work inside.
We have.
There's only so much you can do with that building, you know, and even the outside, it's not exactly.
As Gunnar said, we have hardened the walls. There's some new flooring in, like that, around the windows, fencing. Yes.
The hope was it would only be there for a couple, 3, 4 years at the most. And the issue with that, we had FEMA dollars to pay for it.
Right.
Yes.
And we had to, if they were clear it was temporary, if it turned into permanent, they would claw back, I think it was like $2 million. $2 million? I think it was $2 million. So we quickly had to do something.
Still temporary.
I know, but we're not. Like 12 o'clock. 9 o'clock somewhere.
Thank you for keeping her on time.
So people want lunch. Anything else on this one?
No, this one.
It's probably another one, but the print shop, I remember the roof is like leaking onto equipment and everything. Is that all patched up?
Oh, just details.
That's up next. Isn't it?
No, it's HVAC.
No, it's, sorry, it is in here. It is.
This building.
It's gonna be done this spring. Yes.
So when are
It
you
works.
scheduled to come back to finish this?
We haven't scheduled
Not yet.
anything.
That's good.
Would this be something possible to do on Friday afternoon a little bit? Or you booked
You
up?
thought you were gonna get through it, right?
No, I knew I. You're of age of the years.
Can we just double check? I'm not sure if Bill's in second with me Friday afternoon, so we might have to hold checking right now.
Cause I'm in White River first.
Or maybe you don't know you were in Senate.
No, I was going to I will be. Okay, yes.
You won't be.
So I'm good. But I do have to be in White River. I'm not sure what time I'll get back. I'll be back by 1, but
Would it be okay if we kind of go ahead and preview some of the information you'll be presenting?
might be, it's your documents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do homework. It's fine.
More time for more.
Okay, anything else before we finish?
Little
up?
math.
We are back here. Yes, 1:30.
1:30.
People looking at it.
You're being generous, Jared.
It seems like most
Our schedule.
you can read the slides, but if you don't have the context from you and others, especially if you're new, that it's very limited value. You can be familiar with the projects, I suppose.
If you read the stuff in here.
1:30 is that?
Commissioner of
Oh,
DOC.
no, that's DOC.
I
don't know if it's.
Get a little bit.
awful long time to not have
So much.
somebody.
And are we?
Actually,
Sure.
They're coming in at 3:30.
They're coming in after.
After the 4.
Okay, well, you know, you might want to circle back here around 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Figure something out or something. 30 is long,
It's long. One, yeah, ish.
1-ish.
Depends on how big the line is. So we'll probably go up.
So let's go up